Hi everyone, Parul here, life and leadership coach, your usual host. And today we have another episode of Divorcing Your Parents, Part 2. And today we'll be talking about father wounds. And I have Meher Parul Nagar joining me from all the way from India to share her experience, to give you some hope and courage so you can come forward and deal with the issues that need to be dealt with. So, Meher, welcome on board and thank you again for giving your time. So, I just wanted to start with telling all our audience that Meher is a regular guest in our episodes, and Meher is a trauma expert, trauma therapist, and a trauma survivor. So, whatever Meher discussing here is from her own experience as a victim, but as a thriver, but also as a coach, as a therapist, she learned a lot. So she will be discussing her expert advice and guidance and her experience in here to help everyone. So Meher, tell us about today's subject. Why you decided to talk about father wounds?
So thank you so much, Parul, for this. I think I'm sure that this is gonna help a lot of them who might be going through this. And even if we are able to do change one person's life, I think our job is done. That's what I have learned through ever since I started this journey of trauma expert and all of that, because I realized that there is a lot of denial in our society, specifically when it comes to, subcontinent, Asian countries. And that's why we are talking about it. The reason we are talking about it, because it's not just about, people don't even know what is fatherhood. People are completely unaware of what is this fatherhood. They will be like, what? Like, and a lot of them have this father wound because we come from a generation wherein our parents just replicated all the parenting skills they learned from their parents. They just kept it up, put it on us. And
Absolutely.
that's how generational trauma, not just generational trauma, passes on, which I work on generational and parental trauma, but that's how even wounds, I mean deep wounds passes on, not just abuses. So abuse can be a normal verbal abuse as well, a normal abuse as well. But here it's whole lot of a deep wounded child growing up in a place, in a, it can be a place because it can be an orphan, it can be any house, it can be a guardian, and it can be your parents' house, it can be any place. A
Mhm.
whole lot of a generation now coming up who's completely wounded, they are torn, they are distorted. And that's why father wound, I think father wound won't be just like abuse. As I said, it's beyond that. It's not just a normal thing that your father hit you or said something to you, or it's not something made fun of you or something. That's what people think. But father wound is more about your father traumatizing or hurting your mom or your grandmom, or any fatherly figure you are seeing as hurting somebody like that. That's how fatherhood gets inside us. So it's not just always about what happened to us, it's also about what's happening to people around us and what we have been seeing constantly happening. I see a lot of women here, Parul, even now, the society I live in, the place I live in, it's not about Pune or anything. You know, as I said, it's an issue in the entire subcontinent. If we look into it, or women getting thrashed by her husband, the child crying and trying to save her mother, and the man, I mean, both of them not realizing they're actually not just wounding the child forever, but it is only gonna make that child's life terrible, day by day, because the way he or she is gonna see their parent now will be so different from how a normal child should see their parent as.
Yeah.
So
Meher,
that's what father wound, yeah.
yeah. Interesting you're talking about father wounds, but you also gave example is Asia and subcontinent. It's not just Asia. Men. We're talking about gender bias here. Yes, men, women both get abused, but we're talking about gender bias here, and men. Doesn't matter whether they're black and white, green, yellow, or, wherever they come from, whatever religion they come from, there are men who abuse their women. Whether the woman is their wife, partner, sister, mother, grandmother, front of their children, not just front of their children, but as an abuser. So they don't have they could be from anywhere. And we've seen during COVID that domestic violence went roof high because people were close proximity, and close proximity kind of creates more. But one interesting that I haven't talked to anybody who talks about father wounds separately. So it's really good that you came up with those, and we're going to be talking about different topic
Yeah,
each time. We talked about divorcing your parent part one as a
so
general, like, but
yeah,
now we're talking about father wounds. Next week we'll talk about mother wound. So it's really good to kind of go down deeper, bit more. You talked about a bit more what is father wounds. So can you give us kind of like maybe list of tips what people should look out for, and whether they had trauma from past, and then we'll talk about what they look out for, and the second part will be what people should do, where can they go for help.
yeah. Sure. So, the reason I started that way, because the next thing I wanted to say or address is, uh, I'm glad that you kept it absolutely right, that it is not related to any religion or place or state. It is an issue. It is still there and it is happening everywhere. That's what even I meant. And the reason, it's not just about why we are talking about this. It's also about why it is important for you to know. Okay, because I come from a trauma background as well. I saw my father loving me so much and then abusing my mom. That's how trauma got inside me. The reason I started speaking out loud, because I realize a lot of women, girls, they don't come up and speak because they are like, our social reputation will get hurt. What people will think about me or my parents. And they don't realize that they are only it's not just about speaking up. It's all about healing yourself. If you're not coming up and speaking about it and seeking help to heal yourself, how will you heal yourself? And you're only going to pass on these trauma triggers and patterns and everything to your next generation. That's what happened even with us. Remember, a couple of minutes ago, I just said how generational trauma passed on. My mom did what her mom did, and that's what she wanted me to do, to continue a lot of things and do please my father, a lot of other things, right? We need to be a good child, we need to please our parents, we need to be an obedient one. So these are these signs. I have heard a lot of clients saying, my parents used to control everything about me. I was a very obedient child to them, always listening to them, people pleasing, in general. I spoke about uh parents who probably look like that they were strict for the benefit of the child, but it's they literally not just abused but wounded the child forever by saying, you're not good, you should this do more, you should do that, you should be this. Too much of expectations, too much of to do. I have heard people saying living in cage, like it was a cage for them. Not It's not just about guy or a girl. I have heard even men. So we don't realize. So father wound can happen to anybody, men or male or female. It doesn't matter what gender you are from at all. it can happen, as I said, the way your parents, not just raised you, but treated each other. Specifically how your father treated your mom, or maybe anybody elder at your place. How your father used to not just treat, but made you feel, made you do things, a lot of things. For example, I remember my father not just abusing my mom, but I remember my father socially abusing my mom, even me, later part of my life, because he thought that the way he's treating my mom, he can treat me as well. He literally used to treat me the way that he used to treat my mom, in a lot of ways. So that's what father wound is, and that's how you get to know that you have father wound, because you can see those patterns. Oh, my father used to do this to my mom, or he used to do this to me. There'll be a lot of similar patterns and similar things you will figure out. uh, People having father wound are also someone who tend to get too much into male or female relationship. What happens with father and mother wound? Either we start hating female, or we start hating male as a gender, or maybe we are too submissive to them. We are too submissive to a gender. Okay, so if I've
Yeah.
had a father wound, then I might be also someone who is like, I'm too much, you know. So it's not I'm being good and kind. It's like literally submitting myself to men, because that's what I saw at my house, and that's what I do to safeguard myself, and yeah, to save my
Yeah.
mom.
That's interesting, Meher. I was going to ask that question actually. What is the consequences of not dealing with the issue? Yeah, you started talking about, like you start hating whether man or woman, and you start always protecting yourself, which you shouldn't be always guarding yourself. It should be natural, normal. To have a normal life is because you have wounds, because you become extra careful. So that's do you want to elaborate a bit more what other consequences of not dealing with the wound?
Yeah, I think I think it's very important to know that, because if we don't know it, we don't realize that we are having a father wound in itself. Is that you being with your partner, and uh see, I know we are gonna speak about mother wound as well in our next thing, but both of these wounds are interconnected. You end up being being a father or mother to your sibling. You end up being father or mother to your partner. Okay, you actually replicating your father or mother. Literally, you don't realize it, but you are replicating them. You are replicating your uh father and mother at the same time. I know this can be extremely confusing, but both are part of each other.
Mhm.
So, replication can be when you want to be at a controlling stage, you want to get into your father wound part, how your father used to ill treat and all of that. And when you are at a very humbling or submissive state, you literally start behaving like how your mother did, like you do it, does it, something like that, like you're actually replicating them. Actually, if you see, it's as simple as that. It's so simple to see if we have to see it through.
Yeah. Now, I mean, one of the things, Meher, you talked about obviously the whole emotional and mental aspect. You say you start hating and you start replicating, so unless you deal with the emotional aspect, it's very hard to go on with the life. So
Absolutely.
if people who are listening, if they're going through those traumas, Meher, what can you share your top tips how they can help themselves to come out of that trauma of father wounds and how they can move forward?
I think one thing is, I already spoke about seeing your patterns. You will see a lot of similarities about the patterns you are having. Okay, and it's not just about seeing your patterns and trying to not to do it, because you can't stop that. I think we have I spoken about it or not, but when you have gone through trauma ever since your childhood, what happens? Your trauma gets inside your body and brain. So it's very difficult to control these triggers. And you need to understand you can't control it even if you so want to do it. Like we don't get realize it, but when you're triggered, you're just triggered. You can't help it, man. You just can't do anything about it. And when you are triggered, it's important to know that it's a trigger which is making you do a lot of things. Why do people get into substance abuse or things like that? Father wound or mother wound, unhealed wounds, specifically from your family members, from your, very, very close family members. This father wound can be, isn't father, see, we need to also know father isn't someone who gave us birth. It can be a fatherly figure who gave us wounds,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
so Meher, so I know you talk about the consequences, and so if people realize they have father wounds, what
Yes.
what they should be doing to get out of it? I know triggers always gonna there, but if triggers doesn't mean triggers help, brings in, but how can you move forward? Not stay on the triggers, but how do you deal with emotion? How people should deal
So
with the emotion?
I get it. So one thing, Parul, I want
Mm.
to say, I want to be honest here, like honestly,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that until you don't know that you have triggers, you won't be able to handle it. That's why I spoke about it. That
Hmm.
you need to know your triggers, and you
Yeah.
need to know that father wound isn't only coming from your father. It can be a grandfather wound. Remember. So if say example, if something happened and something got triggered and it got triggered, you just need to know that it's a trigger and that's why it is happening. The moment you know it, it will become easier for you to control it, to do something about it, or maybe to consciously be aware that okay, I should not do it, with whatever best you can do for yourself. Maybe meditation, grounding activities, coloring, jogging, any kind of exercise, cycling. You can do anything like that. But for that, you need to be first consciously aware about that.
Okay, Meher,
These are,
interesting. Okay, go on. Sorry,
yeah,
go on,
any
Dan.
any kind of grounding activity. So see, we cannot perform something until we are not aware of it. You get me? If
Yeah.
I'm aware that I'm triggered, it will be easier for me to know, okay, this is my hobby, this is what I would love to do. I love coloring, so I do coloring, sketching. You can do dancing even without music. It doesn't matter. You should have to have music. You can go running, anything, any kind of grounding activity, walking on grass, wet grass, anything of that sort is what you need to do as your third step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Meher, for sharing kind of your tips as well, how people deal with it. I just want to go back to one point back, which you talked about, anybody fatherly figure. But it's not just fatherly figure. I think also I want to add on is brother-in-law. They could be same age as you are. And I think Indian terms, there is a term that I hear all the time from my Asian friends, is like Sali Adagorali. Men, sister husbands, or brother-in-law mean your husband's brother, they feel you are their other half, then they can molest you, or physically, emotionally, sexually. And that's quite common. The Asian women don't come out is because shame. And you talked about shame. Yeah, I've met so many girls, young girls, even back home, and people don't talk about because of shame, and lots of people is still living on the trauma. What happened when they were a child, they were a teenager, what they were, you know, even inappropriate touch by brother-in-laws, and that's quite common. I've seen, I've heard, from lots of girls, and I just wanted to touch the base that your trauma, not just your father, grandfather, your uncle, but it could be your brother-in-law, extended relatives, anybody. That trigger comes in, and then how you deal with it. The question is, do you want
Yeah.
to live on those triggers, or do you want help? And Meher is one of the experts. You can also reach out to me as well. But Meher is one of the trauma experts, so you can reach out to Meher as well. Her details will be in the video as well. Meher, go on.
I want to add on something. So what you said, Parul, we are gonna speak about in our next to next episode, which
Mhm.
after mother wound,
Yeah.
it will be on family wounds. I think
Mm.
that's where we are gonna speak about all the relations.
Okay.
But uh, for now, in this father wound, I just wanted to add on not just father. We misinterpret only as father, but we don't realize father can be any fatherly figure, grandfather, anybody who has wounded you, and you have seen that happening. I think it's very important to see the patterns. It's very important to see that those patterns are triggering you and it has triggered you, and also very important to put yourself, hold back. So one more thing I just wanted to add on before we shut this off, as what people can do when they had triggered, is that not just grounding activities we know about and we do, but it can be simple. If I'm triggered and something has happened, even if it is not happened and you have got triggered because of your past father wound or something your father used to do or something, is just sit down wherever you are, or maybe if you cannot sit down, just be wherever, stand wherever you are, and stay grounded. So for example, if you're sitting, it should be grounding. It should be more like grounding your feet. When your feet are touching the ground, you should be able to feel and sense it. When you're moving, your hands are moving, you should be able to sense parts of you, not just all five senses, but every single part of you. You should be able to sense it. you know I think that's one thing which will help you. It's not about deviating the focus. It's about being present. What we speak about mindfulness, that you are present and things around you are present. So mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools one can also use to just balance their uh trigger at that point in time.
Absolutely, Meher. Thank you for sharing your tips. And I just want to say to the audience, I know we're talking about deep subject, but it's not just about actual physical abuse. A lot of time we ignore the initial verbal abuse, verbal bullying. Sometimes we don't see the bullying by our in-laws, by our father-in-laws, our brother-in-laws, our father, and those the little things stay in our head. So emotionally, we suffer because we don't see as a bigger thing. Whether it's emotional, verbal, physical, all are big wounds, and you really need help realizing it and then deal with it. And Meher shares some tips on that. Meher, can you, okay, before we wrap up, I just want to ask two questions. One is, what would be the one last thing if you want to share with our audience, what that would be?
One last thing I would say is that when we go through these wounds, it is so difficult to accept and see the way it is. So just be very kind and compassionate to yourself and don't overburden yourself. Take your own time, but don't deny anything, whatever is happening, because denial is only gonna make things worse, as I have spoken about it before. So just take it slow, but accept it, contemplate it, and be very kind, gentle, loving to yourself. And the activities I've already spoken about, do those activities as well when you're doing this. I'm sure this is gonna help you, because it has helped me as well. It's helping. It has helped a lot of my clients as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, Meher. Well said. Now, Meher, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way to get connected with you?
I think my Instagram ID is genuine conversations Meher. If you just put in genuine dot conversation Meher or something, you will get me. I think that's the best way. And I also have my website link there on my bio. So probably in while going to my bio, they can see a webinar. So inside the website, there is a webinar, 10-12 minutes, which completely speaks about your symptoms and a lot of things. So there are a lot of resources available there, which can also help you know more about your trauma and triggers and how it impact you and all of that.
Okay,
And
yeah,
how
we'll
you can help yourself. Honestly, that's also
absolutely.
there.
We'll put Meher's website on below the video so you can click the link. Well, Meher, I'm looking forward to talk to you a whole lot. You know, sometimes you feel like you want to talk about everything, but it's good we have actually broke it down and we're going to talk about different subject, different days, easy for people to kind of take in. Well, thank you very much, audience. Please do like and share our videos because you never know, you sharing, you probably be helping your friends, your relatives, your colleagues, you know, someone out there who might not be speaking up, but you sharing mean they're getting the valuable resources they could help them. So please do share, like, and subscribe to us, because when you subscribe you get alert when you get next, we upload next video. And stay tuned, we'll be releasing more videos, more episodes with Meher on different topics under divorcing your parents. So next week we'll be discussing part 3 of the about mother wounds. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, Meher.
Thank you so much, Parul.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.